Next up, we have among the most regal of all Pokemon, none other than Vespiquen. One of Generation 4's coolest designs, famously used by Marilyn in his Diamond playthrough, and brandished by Elite Four member Aaron, this Killer Queen Bee is as imposing as his pre-evolution Combi was adorable. It even packs 3 signature moves with incredible design: Attack Order, Defense Order, and Heal Order. Today we'll be examining if Vespiquen's reign extended to the competitive scene, or if it was confined to the Sinnoh region's honey trees. And so we ask, how good was Vespiquen actually? And in this video we'll be going over these competitive formats. With solid bulk as a result of good base 102 defenses, a respectable base 70 HP, and an instant recovery move, as well as an obnoxious effective ability in pressure, Vespiquen was not without its good points. However, these good points were entirely overshadowed by all its other traits, which were, and sadly there's no other way to say it, horrible. It was a bulk-minded Pokemon with easily the worst defensive typing in the game, so riddled with weaknesses that even its potentially useful resists were rendered ineffective by virtue of being destroyed by pretty much every common option. And that was without taking into account its ruinous Stealth Rock weakness. If it had had a good speed stat, it would have been able to salvage some sort of small NU niche, as it would have been able to pull off an irritating substitute set that was an effective staller of both toxic damage and opposing moves PP, complete with its choice of either protect or instant recovery. But Vespiquen did not have a good speed stat. It didn't even have a mediocre speed stat. It had a horrible speed stat, tied with none other than Togetic for the lowest among flying Pokemon. As such, it found itself thoroughly outclassed by fellow pressure user Articuno, who had much better speed, bulk, and even a useful stab Ice Beam, and even Articuno struggled to find use in NU, as its defensive typing was similarly flawed. As such, Vespiquen was never ever used, even all the way down in the never used tier of its debut generation. Generation 5's Dream World blessed many a previously unfortunate Pokemon with a new hidden ability that rejuvenated its competitive viability. Most famously, it bestowed Drizzle upon the formerly NU Politoed, who came to define OU. The Dream World also launched the UU Alakazam to OU stardom with Magic Guard, and even significantly bolstered the OU viability of the lower tier Tangrowth and Slow Twins through Regenerator. So what did Vespiquen get from the Dream World? Well, Vespiquen actually got the same hidden ability as Tyranitar and Mewtwo, so that's pretty cool. Less cool was the fact that the ability was Unnerve, which prevented opposing Pokemon from using berries. This was theoretically not a bad ability at all, as being able to nullify resist berries is unique and potentially invaluable. Sadly, it is only really useful on Pokemon that would already be good even if they had no ability. It's the type of ability that just makes good Pokemon better. Believe it or not, Vespiquen did not quite match the power of Tyranitar and Mewtwo. At least pressure would let it do something. Realistically, still almost nothing. It would be tangibly more than anything it could muster with Unnerve. Getting a new ability worse than the one you already had was no big deal for the T-Tars and Mewtwo's of the world, but for Vespiquen, it was akin to being thrown a lifeline that disintegrated the second you grabbed it. As Vespiquen received no buffs whatsoever, it once again saw no usage even down in NU. And this time around, it was able to drop to untiered, and so it did. Generation 6 saw Vespiquen once again not receive the slightest semblance of the massive buffs it needed for the smallest bit of competitive viability. It was a particularly cruel situation since Vespiquen also once again teased with possibility, Stealth Rock could now be removed with the fog, moves had their base power lowered, and a new tier below NU now existed and Mega Evolutions existed. Can you imagine how ridiculously cool a Mega Vespiquen would be? Sadly, we were deprived of this by the geniuses in charge, as they were clearly too afflicted by a case of bad idea poisoning to think straight. Otherwise, they surely would have given us the greatest bug type of all time. Sadly, they did not, and Vespiquen continued to suffer instead, too inept to find a niche even all the way down in the newly added PU. At least the player base tried to find something new it could potentially do, as instead of inevitably failing to be a defensive Pokemon, they attempted to replicate Yanmega by giving Vespiquen offensive investment and a boosting item, ideally giving its stab moves some charge. Sadly, between the medium base power of its stabs and its mediocre base 80 special attack, even by PU standards, Vespiquen wasn't able to threaten much of anything. It once again dropped to untiered. Many Pokemon received stat buffs in Generation 7, and Vespiquen was not one of them. It didn't get any notable new moves or abilities either. As such, it was the same old Vespiquen and another power creep surrounding. Generation 7 PU was far stronger than Generation 6, so if Vespiquen couldn't hack it in the prior generation, well, it's not like it could really become more unviable, and it's all the same once you get to untiered. At least this time around, the existence of PU wasn't new, so it didn't get Vespiquen's hopes up. That is the brutally low standard it aspired to. It's not like it was ever going to use Z moves efficiently, so it wasn't teased with the potential for something more. Theoretically, they could have given it an evolution or regional form, but we digress. At long last, Generation 8 finally breathed some life into Vespiquen. With the lowered Pokedex and the addition of heavy-duty boots, it could circumvent the crippling Stealth Rock weakness that had hindered it since its inception, and as such was able to establish a niche for itself in early Sword and Shield PU. Its defensive typing was still far from ideal, but Vespiquen managed to make it work. Its bulk was quite solid, and it wasn't aiming to be a perfect wall. It operated more as a pivot with more utility in the fog if need be. It had quite a few opportunities to switch in on the tier's many fighters and grasses, such as Phalanx, Throw, Gorgeist XL, and Silvally Grass, and when they were forced to switch out, Vespiquen would take advantage with U-turn, bringing in an advantageous teammate like a Glass Cannon attacker safely. It wasn't perfect in the longevity department, but it could often play the long game in certain matchups, helping its team go the distance. Thanks to pressure, it would effectively have Roselia's Spike's PP, allowing it to outstall the move with Defog and alleviating an otherwise significant source of pressure on its teammates. Despite not being able to run leftovers, Vespiquen's bulk against neutral attacks was still quite impressive, whether it focused on physical or special defense. For example, it was able to devour the likes of Silvally Psychic's multi-attack with ease. For the first time ever, Vespiquen was a legitimate piece of the metagame. It fit on several types of teams, could adapt its EV spread and movesets to its team's needs, and above all else, players had to actually take its defensive presence into account in the team builder if they wanted to be successful. Then sadly, the Isle of Armor and subsequently the Crown Tundra brought many Pokemon back, and Vespiquen couldn't keep up with the increased power levels, once again falling to untiered. However, what could not be taken away was the fact that Vespiquen was a genuinely great part of early Generation 8 PU. So next step in Gen 9, an evolution and a regional form, and a Mega Evolution, and a signature Z move. Make no mistake, Vespiquen will receive what it's owed, even if it needs to send a swarm of honey-deprived Combee to Game Freak HQ to make it happen. And that's it. So how bad was Vespiquen actually? Well, it is one of the most competitively maligned Pokemon of all time, which is a real shame given its killer design. Its potential as a lower tier bulky Pokemon has been ruined by its horrible typing, low speed, and unimpressive move pool. It was able to find a niche in early Gen 8 PU, which was heartening, but then the dex expanded, and away it went once more. This is tough on us to do, but seeing as it is untiered in 4 of the 5 generations this existed in, and would be untiered in the 5th one if the status had existed then, we have no choice but to brand Vespiquen one of the worst competitive Pokemon of all time. But we hope that it will make this brand look foolish in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Vespiquen? How would you buff it? Go nuts, honestly. I want to see what ideas y'all have. Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.